Good morning, everybody. I hope you enjoyed breakfast. I want to start out, of course, first and foremost saying thank you. That is really one of the main reasons I like to do this. And the other reason we always do the labor breakfast near Labor Day is because I think it's very important that we celebrate this day. And I just pulled a little bit of information on this that I wanted to talk about. And it's the creation of the labor movement. It's dedicated to the social and economic achievements of American workers. And this became a holiday on June 28th of 1894, which just talks about sort of a little bit of the history and how important this is. The last thing I want to read on this page, because I think this says it better than I can do. It says, "The vital force of labor added materially to the highest standard of living and greatest production the world has ever known, and brought us closer to the realization of our traditional ideals of economic and political democracy. It's appropriate, therefore, that the nation pay tribute on Labor Day to the creator of so much of the nation's strength, freedom, and leadership, the American worker." And I think it's very important that we remember that. I do want to thank my chairs of this event. I know IBEW 176 and also Labor's 149, and all of you who are contributing to my campaign. This is so important. And of course, I keep drawing 2-year terms, so I'm up again in 2014, so that's what we do. But this isn't just about me inviting you to come and support me and help me in another campaign. This is about us working together. And that's really what we do to do the best possible job. I cannot do what I do. I can't represent the people of my district, the people of Illinois, without you. It's your input. You're making sure that I'm aware of any legislation coming up, how it's going to impact you and your membership. Your job is to keep your membership strong, to make sure they are earning that wage they need to be earning, so that they're buying houses, cars, supporting a family, and supporting our economy. That is what this is all about. I can best help you help your members if you reach out to me. And I can look at so many of you in this room and say, you call me, you text me, you drop by my office, you come down to Springfield, and you keep me aware of what's important. That way I can represent you. I have one advantage in that it's not only my voice on the Senate floor that speaks for you. I have been, since I was elected in 2006, the vice chair of the Labor Committee. And because of that, very often we see bills that come through labor that may be beneficial to you, or more often than not lately, we're seeing bills that are somewhat harmful to the labor movement. That seems to be the popular thing. We can very often take those bills in the Labor Committee and kill them so they never come to the floor, so we never risk the chance that they will come to us. Again, that's something I can only do with your expertise and your input in letting you know how this affects your membership. I don't know that as well as you do. You're in the trenches every single day. So let me continue to be your voice. Let me help you reach out and help your members, my voters, my constituents, the people of Illinois that keep this country going strong, that are really the backbone of this country, and we must not forget that. I want to wrap up by talking a little bit about, just the last thing I'm going to talk about, simply because it's all I talk about anymore, is pensions. Now, it doesn't affect all of you. Some of you are impacted by what happens with employee pensions and the state's pension programs. Some of you are not, and some of your members are. And it's really an important issue, and it's also an important issue because I think it sort of highlights the way the general public is looking at pensions, and I think that's a very important point that we need to take as we look at the promises we made as a state and where we're sort of falling down, not doing what we should be doing. And I could talk all day on pensions, and I'm not going to, because I'm going to keep this brief, because there's a couple other people here I want to introduce. But before I go on, I want to thank some of you, and some of you I know came from a very long way, and thank you very much for that, Jimmy. I know you had quite a long drive, thank you. But when I go on to pensions, I just want to say, a year ago, before the whole pension issue really got going, I had made a commitment that some will say was not the smartest thing to do, is to come out and make an absolute statement. And my statement was, I am not supporting any pension, I would like to call it stabilization rather than reform, but any pension stabilization plan that is not negotiated and agreed upon with our labor unions that represent the people who are impacted by these decisions we're making. And I said that a year ago. And I said that all session while I worked on pensions. And I sat in those negotiations with our unions. And I will say right now to you, as I sit on the pension conference committee, as a matter of fact, this afternoon, I will be heading back to Chicago for another conference committee meeting. But I am telling you right now, I am sticking to that. I am not supporting any pension program. So thank you, that's all I have to say. I have a couple people I want to introduce to say something. I know my wonderful state rep, we are the Lindas of Aurora, has come out to support me. Linda, do you want to come up and say a few words?
No, I want to thank everybody that came out to support my senator, and whoever didn't get a back massage, I'm sorry. But thank you for coming out. I just want to support my senator.
Thank you, Linda. The Lindas of Aurora will keep being a voice for you and representing you, so I thank you for that. And we also have Senator Mike Frerichs. Him and I came into office at the same time, and you may have heard he's sort of been everywhere. I see him everywhere I go. I see him in Chicago. I saw him in Carbondale. Mike is running to be our next state treasurer. So Mike, do you want to say a few words?
I'm sorry, Scott. You tried to help her out. Yes, you said you described as the two Lindas. I've always heard you referred to as the two Lindas. Isn't that Spanish?
Yes.
For beautiful?
Yes.
I want to thank you very much for letting me come here. I want to say a few things about Linda. We talked about, Scott, I think you had mentioned, how a lot of people have forgotten what this holiday is about. There are people around the state who have forgotten the heritage and the reason we have time off and why this is a big holiday for people. And they want to focus on other things rather than labor. And I want to talk about people who have not forgotten. You know, there are a lot of people around here, this area, who are full of Democrats. And some people say, well, the suburbs are really full of Democrats. I say, no, the suburbs are full of Democrats. There's a lot of them who don't know it yet. I think this Tea Party, especially over the last few years, has helped instill a wave of amnesia amongst a lot of voters. People all of a sudden have forgotten what working people, what unions, what Democratic policies did to improve their lives. They've forgotten those, and they voted on the wrong side. And it's our job to make sure that they don't forget. And Linda is someone who obviously has not forgotten. No, these suburbs used to be viewed as fairly Republican, and I know how that works because I grew up in an area that was considered very Republican. And when I first announced I was going to run for office as a Democrat, I heard people say, "What are you doing running as a Democrat? You're a Republican." I said, "No, I'm not." I said, "Your family, they're all Republican." I said, "No, they're not." My mom's side of the family, they are. But my dad's side, my dad's a Democrat, and his father's a Democrat because he was born and raised in the midst of the Great Depression. Lived on a small rural farm, didn't have electricity. FDR and Democrats came in and said, even though those big power companies bypassed rural America, just concentrated on urban areas, FDR said, we're not going to leave any Americans behind. We're all Americans, we all ought to have right access to this new technology. And my grandfather never forgot that. And that's why he voted Democrat. When my father grew up, he grew up on this tenant farm, it's a dairy farm, and there wasn't enough land for him to make a go of it, and so he went to go work at the local grain elevator. And he ended up driving a truck there, and he eventually joined the Teamsters Union. It was because of people who went before him, who fought, organized, who went on strike, so that he and people like him could have a better quality of life, that he never forgot that. That's my dad to this day, folks Democrat. And when I grew up in this household, Union made sure we had a good standard of living, but when I got into college, let me tell you, it was a very expensive bill. My dad said, sorry, we can't afford it. But it was Democrats in Congress who would push through things like Pell Grants and federally guaranteed student loans that made sure people like me could have access to the American dream. We're just sons of truck drivers. I never forgot that, and that's why I run as a Democrat. And I want to come out here today, and I want to thank Linda for inviting me up here to be with a bunch of other people who have not forgotten the struggles that people went through before us, so we can have the quality of life we have. And you've probably not forgotten, you probably haven't gone noticed that that fight is not over. You don't need to look very far outside of our borders. It's Indiana, Wisconsin, and Michigan, to see that working people in those policies that have improved the lives of countless families are still under attack. I want to thank you very much for coming out today to support my colleague, Linda Holmes, because she's another person who is not forgotten. Every day when we're there, I know on that labor committee, she knows the work that you've all done for her, not just for her, but for the families of her constituents, and she doesn't forget that when it comes time to vote. And that's why she stood up and was such a strong voice on this pension debate. And really, you are blessed, and I want to thank you. She does have a 2-year term, and there will be people come after her. You're going to see the Chicago Tribune put a big target on her back. And so I want to thank you for supporting it. But don't forget, spend this weekend celebrating for the reasons that we all know, for the history out there. But when it's over, remember to make sure your members go out there, and don't forget who's fighting for you and how that fight still goes on and it's not over. Thank you very much. Thank you, Linda, for all you do. You've been a pleasure to serve with. She's a great classmate of mine. I hope maybe someday that we'll go separate ways, but I'm still committed to working with you. You all have a great day. Thanks.